small rebel force has penetrated the shield and landed on Endor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times.
Star Wars #1!
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Now, wait a minute. I thought that it was sacrilege to recast Carrie Fisher.
Oh, no.
Now, you can't do it, they say. You can't do it. But I've got a story here that talks about how Princess Leia will feature in Star Wars Resistance, and she's going to be recast by Rachel Butera. So Rachel Butera will be playing the role of Princess Leia Organa in Star Wars Resistance. So see? The world is still spinning. Wait, what did I miss?
Oh, a lot, apparently. A lot.
Oh, come on. I'm just saying that Rachel Butera, she has been confirmed. She announced it on Twitter that she is going to play the role of Princess Leia, a General Princess Leia Organa in, she just says Leia Organa.
Yeah.
I guess she drops the princess thing. She'll always be royalty. But General Leia in Star Wars Resistance. And now Rachel has done the voice before.
What?
Right?
Now, this is something I'm not aware of.
Oh, she didn't?
No. Who
am I thinking of?
We've had a few voices for Princess Leia.
I was thinking
animation.
about Rebels. I was thinking about Rebels.
Right. Julie Dolan voiced the role of Leia in Rebels, and also Shelby Young in Star Wars Forces of Destiny. And don't forget Catherine Tabor in the shelved Star Wars Detours, which I still think we'll see at some point next year. A lot of people are pointing at the IMDb entry for Star Wars Detours, and it has a 2019 date added to it. So that has a lot of people scratching their heads. Oh. Is Detours going to show up on the streaming service? I think maybe. I think there's a good chance it'll see some sort of home video release in 2019.
Oh, okay. All right.
So we'll hear Cat Tabor.
Or will it be on that streaming service?
Well, that's what I'm thinking. It could very well be. And we'll hear Cat Tabor as Leia, young Leia in Detours.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Then you
you know what?
Yeah.
I was thinking, this makes sense because obviously this is older Leia. This is clearly older Leia.
This is General Leia.
General Leia. Right. Yeah. It's older Leia. But now Rachel Butera, she's listed as doing a lot. Well, she does a lot of work. She's a comedian. She's on TV. She's on the Howard Stern show. She's done the new Rocky and Bullwinkle show on Netflix.
Wow.
Family Guy. She's done all kinds of stuff, and she's got some funny stuff on her Twitter. She's does some great impressions. She's got a Rosie O'Donnell impression that's real good. And but anyway, so she has been announced officially as Leia in Star Wars Resistance. Now, of course, the Star Wars Resistance teaser trailer did drop. It actually it dropped on Twitter, I believe, didn't it? Yeah, that was where it first came out. It's been since put on YouTube, and it's over at StarWars.com. But I believe that it actually had its first little drop, I guess you could say, on Twitter.
Well,
we're
good for
break
Twitter.
That down.
I don't even look at Twitter anymore. I saw it on Facebook, and I saw it right when it launched. So, but we get our first glimpse of the Star Wars Resistance animated series via this new trailer. Plus, we have more info about the cast and the character names. That's all coming up this week on the show. We're going to go in the cantina with a mystery Clone Wars guest. We're just going to keep it a mystery. We're not going to.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, it's not going to be a big secret once we finally get this guest on the show, but we're just going to keep it under wraps for now. it doesn't matter.
Start talking, we'll let you know who they are.
Right. I'll probably put it in the show description anyway when we post it online, so it'll be no big secret to anyone. So who are we kidding? But if you didn't look, don't look, and you'll be surprised.
Yeah, don't look at the show art for this week's show. So that's all coming your way, plus voicemails and some emails if we have time. But let's get things kicked off with Bianca from Michigan.
Hey guys, it's Bianca from Michigan. I watched the new trailer for Star Wars, The Clone Wars, The Siege of Mandalore, and I finally calmed down to where I'm not crying anymore. Yeah, tears of happy joy. And my coworker actually asked if I was okay, and I said, yeah, one of the greatest shows for Star Wars is coming back for 12 episodes. And she didn't laugh. Anyway, I am so excited. I can't wait. This has pretty much sealed the deal for me. I will be buying a subscription to the Disney streaming service so I can watch this. And I have one question already. The base that they show Anakin and Obi-Wan going to meet Rex, is that the same one that we see from season 1 of Rebels, episode 6, Out of Darkness, where Hera and Sabine go to pick up supplies from Fulcrum? And of course, we again visit that base later. But to me, it looks the same. I don't know. I'm actually in my car on the way home from work. So let's ponder that, shall we? And here's to whenever it is that's coming out. I can't wait. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
Well, I tell you what, Bianca, if the trailer made you cry, just wait till you get a load of our guest in the cantina this week. So stay tuned. So here's a question, Jim. So we see at the end of the trailer, when we first started getting our glimpse of non-flashback material from the Clone Wars, we see Anakin and Obi-Wan heading to meet Rex, and then we see the transmission of Ahsoka. Is it the same base as the base that we see in Rebels Season 1?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
I'll tell you what, once Bianca settled down and stopped crying, she cleared the tears from her eyes, her eagle eyes, to see the base is, very good pickup, very perceptive. That is the same base that we see in the Clone Wars trailer. We've seen it before. We saw it in the first season of Rebels. And it actually is in the episode Out of Darkness, and it's named Fort Anaxis. It's the home to the Phinox. Remember the Phinox? They lurked in the darkness, and Ezra was able to communicate with them via the Force and use them. Yeah. Remember that episode?
Right.
So that's where they were meeting up with, they were getting the supplies that the Fulcrum had left there for them. And so I did some further research and realized that this very same location is a base in the Bad Batch arc, the unreleased Clone Wars arc, Bad Batch. And I think that's kind of interesting that some of the action happens on the same planet where this base is. So we're going to see some continuity there. And also it just goes to show you that we are going to be seeing that Bad Batch unfinished story reel, they call it. We're going to see that completed. That's going to be part of the 12 episodes. That story arc is going to be part of those 12 episodes. So that's
exciting.
That's eagle-eyed stuff, though.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, to have that ability to recall, that shot of that base from that episode, that's special. That's a talent. And then, Jim, I'm looking at our show notes that you put together for us, and I can actually see these captures.
Yeah.
And if you see this, and maybe we can get up on the website at some point, but you can see this The one you have captured, which is clearly from Rebels, where these big wooden panels that are coming down right in front of the landing platform are all kind of dilapidated and warped and broken. But in the Clone Wars, it's all very crisp and clean cut. And,
yeah, it looks smoother. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to wonder, were they just recycling things that were unused for Clone Wars out of convenience, or was there really an attempt going on to establish continuity right from that very first season of Rebels, establish continuity with Clone Wars? Because as it all turned out, Rebels is a really solid extension of the Clone Wars. Yeah. While never really matching the Clone Wars, in my opinion, it still is a very worthy...
It's a follow-up.
Extension, follow-up.
Yeah.
Follow-up. Great follow-up. Great follow-up. And now that we have a new animated series coming up, Star Wars Resistance, I'm sure we're going to be discussing, is this an obvious extension of the Clone Wars into Rebels, into Resistance? Are we going to see that, or is it going to be something separate and different? I'm sure we all have our opinions about it, and we'll get into it just a minute. I do want to just update everyone on what's happening over in the Rebel Force Radio Patreon community. We're having a busy week over there, and we just released a new episode of RFR Rush Hour, which was a lot of fun. That was a great conversation we had, Jason. We discussed a little moment, a little tiny moment that Anakin Skywalker has in The Phantom Menace, and I think we had a really nice conversation about that just sort of slid us into the show. And we also talked about whether or not the Disney age of Star Wars is giving us too much too fast. And we talk about, we go behind the scenes, like into the podcast industry, and talk about the Star Wars Historical Source Book, which is a new book by Bob Miller that I think everyone needs to check out. We'll talk about that more on an upcoming episode of RFR. But that's a lot of fun. So if you, I think I've been saying to people, if you can't get enough Rebel Force Radio and you need something more, jump on board with the Patreon, because there's a lot of great exclusives there. And the community is really fabulous, too. A lot of good people there. I recently met up with an RFR Patreon community member here in the Chicago area, Denny Lewis from Montreal, Canada. And I didn't know Denny, never met him before, outside of some interaction in our Patreon community. We hung out at the world-famous Galloping Ghost Arcade, and then across the street, the Brixies for a few cold ones, and then various misadventures after that. Oh, and Denny created an ID for us. He speaks, fluent French because he's from Montreal. And he created a great little show ID for us en français. So we'll play that later on in the show. So keep your ears open, listen for Denny. And that's just part of what makes that community great, is that people come out to the Chicago area and we have the opportunity to hang out. And all of those arrangements happen through the Patreon community. And like I said, if you're into vintage video games, RFR Hangout is the Galloping Ghost Arcade on Ogden Avenue. They have almost 700 vintage cabinets, all different, not a single repeater in the whole thing. They're all unique, and most of those games you can only find at the Galloping Ghost, which is the world's largest cabinet arcade. And it's for the hardcore old-school gamers from the 80s, back when we used to spend quarter after quarter, token after token, chasing that high score. So so much fun to meet so many great people with the Patreon community. Get on board now, patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio.
This is Denny Lewis from the Montreal area, and I'm just here to say that Rebel Force Radio, c'est le meilleur podcast dans le monde, dans toutes les galaxies des étals de guerre. Merci.
Say it loud, say it proud. People are lining up for Star Wars, and everybody is excited, especially the Rebel Force Radio podcast.
Yeah, those podcasts are great. I got to get this podcast.
Your source for the Force.
I have good news for you, my lord.
That's good news. Come closer, I have good news.
All right. Well, the big news this week is that Star Wars Resistance trailer. Previously, we'd only seen the show logo, and we got a little introduction to one of the lead voice actors on the show there, Christopher Sean, who plays Kazuda, and I think it's pronounced. I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with pronouncing that XI as a J sound. So I'm going to go with Jono.
Jono. I go with
Siono.
I go with Kazuda Ziono. Kaz Ziono. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say it, but I'm saying it.
Ziono. Ziono versus Jono.
Yeah.
I guess Ziono I guess makes a little bit more sounds a little more Star Warsy.
Yeah.
But prior to this trailer, all we had seen was that logo, and then there was, I think, a cast shot of the some of the characters, but nothing animated, and we got it. And you know what? Let's kick things off. There was a voicemail that caught my ear. This is Todd from Columbus, Ohio, and this was his take on it, and then we'll go from there and just get into the trailer and take it a little bit shot by shot. Take it away, Todd.
Hey guys, this is Todd from Columbus. I wanted to call and give you my first take on the Star Wars Resistance trailer. I really liked it, and I was surprised because I'm usually not a fan of anime, but you can definitely see the influence of that. What I thought was interesting, though, is it's such a departure from what they've done in the past at Lucasfilm Animation. And it makes me think about some of the other big animation studios that I've grown up with, like Disney has a very distinct look, Pixar has a very distinct look, and even going back into my childhood, Warner Brothers, Hanna-Barbera, those cartoons when you see them. And Lucasfilm Animation had done that with Clone Wars, and maybe a little bit of a change when we got to Rebels, but Resistance is very different. Nothing like what they've done before, and very heavily influenced by anime, as I think we all have come to expect. Just wanted to hear what you guys think about that, and what that means to the future of Star Wars animation. And as always, thanks for everything you do. Take care.
Thank you very much, Todd. Appreciate the voicemail. So the difference in style, and as I say, we're going to get into it, sort of a shot-by-shot analysis of the teaser. But Jim, we knew going into this that this was not going to be what you would consider a 3D style of animation. This was going to be more traditional 2D animation. And when Todd raises the question, there's two things that jumped out at me. One is he's saying, look, we've seen two television series from Lucasfilm Animation, and they both, very different, but have a somewhat of a consistent style, that computer animation style, and both stylized to an extent. So there is a look. The second is with this sort of a change, what does it mean for the future of Star Wars animation? And I'll tell you, my thought is, I think that it's a good move because one of the limitations with the 3D animation, and we, if you go back and listen to our archives, we have many, many, many interviews with Dave Filoni, and he talks about the fact that it's very expensive. The modeling with 3D animation is very expensive. So that's why you very rarely saw characters outside of big season switches ever really change their costumes, ever change their clothes. So I think one of the advantages with this style of animation that we're seeing with Resistance is I think it might be more fluid. Yes, it's going to be cheaper, but that doesn't necessarily mean just a dive in quality. But I think it means there's going to be a certain fluidity and a certain ability to adapt, change, that we didn't get with those other shows.
Yeah, I think it does offer the creators more flexibility. It's not being so limited as we've heard Filoni say over the years that, well, we just didn't have the models built up for it. It was the 3D modeling was a painstaking process that took a while. So it's not like they could just say, okay, we'll just throw a hammerhead in here. No, the hammerhead had to be developed and built up from scratch. And sometimes when you're dealing with deadlines and things like that, you're just limited by your resources. And you can really see this in those early episodes of the Clone Wars, especially the Clone Wars movie, which lacks any sort of epic scale at all. You know, it's like you could tell they were just still building up their portfolio of characters and still creating. So you have a lot of, I think, very similar looking characters doubling down in the background of some of those early Clone Wars episodes and the movie. And I think that's because it costs so much, it takes so much for the CGI to be developed. I think in a case like this, now obviously there are digital aspects to what's going on here with the animation, but it looks more like a traditional 2D type of line art. I've heard it being described as CGI still, but
well, yeah, I mean, I guess I'm certainly not I am no animation expert, but
right.
With my eyes, it's a flatter, more 2D style.
Yeah.
It's more in line with what you see commonly on television today.
Somebody was saying Ben 10. Ben 10. This looks like Ben 10.
Ben 10, it reminds you a little bit of the newer Voltron series that's on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to be honest, I'm a Boomerang guy. I'm still watching the old Yogi Bears and Flintstones and Scooby-Doos. We watch a little bit of SpongeBob. Well, a lot of SpongeBob in our house. We watch some Loud House. I'm not into, the more, Ben 10's a good example. What was the Young Justice series it was on a few years ago that is actually coming back? I'm just not watching those things, so I don't have a whole lot to compare this to, other than I definitely see this as being very much a sign of the times. I think this is very much unlike Clone Wars, which I really feel was so unique and stood out to such a degree, and Rebels as well. This feels very much like anything else you might see, on cable for this demographic. I don't want to make it that sound like a criticism, because it's really not meant to be. It's just putting it in perspective. Where these other shows, Rebels and Clone Wars, really stood out, this looks somewhat common. Now, the one super uncommon thing that it is that it's Star Wars, and it deals with Star Wars characters, and you see BB-8, and you see Poe Dameron, and you see X-Wings, and you see all kinds of exciting things that you're not used to seeing. Now, the nostalgic side of me that grew up, obviously, on 2D animation, is really enjoying this kind of what feels to me like almost a retro thing when you compare it to, the more 3D modeling and the way that the other two series were made. This feels a little bit retro to me, which I like. That appeals to me. So I'm not immediately seeing that as a negative. I'll be honest with you. The Rebels animation, I felt sometimes was just a little, I love the angles in the Clone Wars. I could look at, the point on Obi-Wan's beard and on Count Dooku's beard all day. I love, I love sort of
those guys look like they were carved out of wood.
But over time it just fit. It fit those characters, and I thought it was just so unique and so over the top in some ways, stylized. That Rebels felt just kind of a little, just kind of round and blah. This is definitely another take.
Yeah.
And I'm liking it. So, Not to belabor the point, but it's clearly different. And let's face it. Let's be reasonable. This is as much about economics as it about anything else. I mean, there's a certain amount of budget, and Disney is building up an arsenal of content to fill not just their upcoming streaming service, but also their cable channels. And you can't make everything look like the Clone Wars. I mean, that was
special.
And from what I understand, George bled money for that Clone Wars. That Clone Wars was in a lot of ways, it was a big passion project for George. That was not some big, huge money maker.
All right, well, I'll tell you what. You want to just take a deep dive into this trailer and
let's do it.
Talk about it, and I think that'll help us kind of be able to articulate what we're thinking, what we're feeling. Do you want to go ahead and play it just so we can get some sound, and then I'll just follow along with that?
You want me to do that? Okay, let me. I'll do that, and I'll set the sound kind of light here.
So
let me
sync up our trailer screening here, and you just tell me when, and we'll fire this sucker up.
All right, here we go. Hit and play. All right. Got the X-Wing firing up.
All right, well, I like that. Is that an X-Wing? Is that an X-Wing?
I'm going to back it up here so I can take a freeze. Well,
it's
an X-Wing,
but I wouldn't call that an X-Wing.
It is very X-Wing-like, but I feel like it then cuts to a different ship.
Right. That looks more like a Jedi starfighter. You see the engines firing up on that thing? That looks more like a Jedi starfighter to me.
It sure does. Now, what I'm not sure of is if the ship that we see, being suspended there over the water with the orange and the green, if that's the same ship when you see the engines firing in the back. I suppose it is.
Is it?
It's hard to tell, though. It really is hard to tell.
That looks too rounded off in the back.
Right. That's what I'm feeling like. That we're seeing a cutting of two different ships.
Yeah, you can see the back of that other ship. It looks different to me, and that doesn't look like an X-wing. It looks like parts of an X-wing. Yeah, and but I don't think the wings. It looks like those wings actually came from a B-wing, and you have two separate B-wing wings tacked onto an X-wing fuselage.
Yeah. This is something that's cobbled together here. Might be some sort of custom job, which, that was something that was really fun about The Force Awakens was that the X-wings all had they had very unique looks. They weren't quite as uniform as they were in the original trilogy.
And you see BB-8 there. He's looking at that ship getting dropped down. This is the first I've noticed BB is right there. And
right down on the left, yeah.
So we could go ahead and fire it up.
All right.
I gotta say the look of those engines firing up really reminds me a lot of some anime I'd watch when I was a kid, like Battle of the Planets or the G-Force. Those guys.
Robotech.
Right. It gives me that vibe. Yeah. Then you see the back of Kaz, and he's looking out over the ocean with BB-8 there. Yep. Twin moons, which is kind of a nice contrast to Luke staring off on the setting suns.
Yep.
I don't know what's running through Kaz's mind here, but just from looking at him, I feel like I'm looking at the back of Kanan almost. Kind of feels that way wardrobe-wise.
A little bit. I see the Ben 10 analogy, too.
Or the Ben 10, yeah.
Yeah, the green.
I don't think Kaz reminds me at all of Kanan. Not at all.
No.
But just from the shot from the back with the green, it sort of looks like him. But Kaz does remind me of Ezra, like Ezra 2.0, There's something about the jumpy enthusiasm about him that distinctly reminds me of, Ezra Part 2. So, all right, so that's kind of nice. He's looking out on the ocean with BB-8.
What it's like to be an ace pilot?
Can you imagine what it's like to be an ace pilot? So clearly you got a kid here who is he's striving. He's wanting to live out his fantasies, his dreams as an ace pilot, kind of like almost a little bit how Anakin was there on Tatooine, dreaming of being a Jedi. Luke on Tatooine, also dreaming of joining the Academy. So here's our hero that's looking for his adventure. Oh, BB-8, and engines revving here.
This is your.
All right. Well, you know what? Look at when they're.
Now, do you see the X-wing going through, Jim? The circular structure here.
Yeah.
This was some sort of race, and you see the characters kind of cheering.
Yeah, this is like they have to clear these obstacles in the race.
Yeah.
To stay on the track, they pass through these things. Have you ever seen planes racing? Like they do this stuff. Yeah, they'll do this stuff like in exotic locales, like southern France or someplace, and they'll have like planes on the right off the shore, and they set up these courses for these planes to fly, and it's actual thing, plane racing, and they stay right over the water, and they go through obstacles, they go through pylons and stuff, and this kind of reminds me of that. It looks like that's
to make.
When I first saw these rings they're flying through, at first I thought it was entrance into atmosphere via a planetary shield, like what we see in Rogue One. Now that I freeze-framed it, upon closer inspection, they appear to be more like the hyperspace rings that you see in Attack
Yes,
of the
they
Clones. But they don't serve that purpose. They're clearly designed as part of a race course. So these guys have to maneuver through it. And I see this one ship that's coming into frame right before it cuts away out of this shot. And it does look like a modified Jedi starfighter. You see the front forks, very similar to the thing Anakin was flying in Revenge of the Sith. And it looks like in the droid slot instead of an R2 unit, it almost looks like an FX7 medical droid head or a probe droid, like a probe droid in there. But I can't tell.
Really?
But that might just be part of the ship. Like that could be some reactor or something that I'm just saying is a droid. But that looks like a Jedi starfighter, definitely a modified Episode 3 Jedi starfighter. And it's hanging out in the rear. You can only see it barely come into frame, and then it cuts away to a very excitable Kaz. He's freaking out about something. And
you want to be an ace pilot? Have you ever dreamed of being an ace pilot?
This is your chance to make that.
All right. Now, we see a green alien here. And the first thing I thought of is this. Do you know the race here? This is like one of Jabba's skiff guards, isn't it?
The species, I think he's like the Klaatu.
The Klaatu?
From, I'm full screen here, so I'd have to confirm that. But yeah, he looks like he's one of those Claatu, Klaatu.
Is it C or is it K?
Or did I say K? I meant to say, C, K.
It is C. It's
okay.
K.
But I have to put Star Wars in there because there's a rock band named Klaatu. There's, of course, from The Day the Earth Stood Still. But yeah, he's a Klaatu. He's a Nikto. He's a Nikto. That's why I wanted to look him up. Klaatu was a henchman of Jabba the Hutt. And he's that green alien. He sort of has sort of spiky things coming around his eyes, reptilian, and he was represented by the old Kenner action figure line, their Return of the Jedi. So that's Klaatu, and that's what I think he is. That's what I think he is.
I believe, while we're talking about Klaatu, I think he's one of the last remaining figures that hasn't been remade since the Kenner days.
Oh, no.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I thought he was one of the holdouts that they haven't done the vintage collection version.
Maybe they haven't, because I do recall there being like a Skiff Guard multi-pack that they put out years ago, or 3-pack, and he was part of that scene.
Yeah, that's right. He was, but I don't think that he I don't think that he's been released on a single card. I think he's one of those missing, because there's the collectors that want to get every equivalent, postmodern equivalent of the original vintage line. And there are still some that haven't been made, believe it or not, all these years later.
So Klaatu is old. Klaatu, by the way, was a henchman of Jabba the Hutt, and he spent his time at the Hutt's palace repairing skiffs, eagerly awaiting executions, and amassing ever larger gambling debts. He likes long walks.
Sounds like my uncle.
He says inappropriate things at Thanksgiving. Yeah, he is your uncle. He likes long walks on the beach and spends his time writing poetry.
Wow,
that's
he's a Renaissance Nikto.
But yeah, I think he is represented here by this character, pal of Kaz Ziono. We don't know who that is. We do have a cast list here, and there is a guy, Josh Brenner, who is voicing Niku Vozu. And that guy looks like a Niku Vozu to me.
Yeah, we don't know for sure, but he does look like it. You got that Neek in there for the Nikto. Yeah.
Right.
Niku Vozo.
So I'm just guessing that's who it is, just because I think the name matches sort of how he looks. He looks like a Nico.
And here he's clearly encouraging Kazuda, saying, hey, this is your chance to make your dreams come true.
I've got a mission.
All right, and now we've got Poe Dameron. And you know what jumped out at me, Jim, is that this version of Poe Dameron, this close-up shot, reminds me of the Disney Infinity video game, and you could collect the figures that went with it. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, right.
And this style of animation, particularly this Poe, looks a lot like the way that those figures were designed.
I hear what you're saying. I see it myself. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Some people commented they felt like the animation on the faces appeared to be a little incomplete. Do you see what there's? I mean, there is kind of a sort of
there's a lack of detail. It's very flat. You don't see a lot of shading. A little bit around the eye and the nose, but you're right. Like the cheeks aren't highlighted. Yeah, it's definitely more kind of quick and dirty.
No pock marks.
It's definitely faster. So anyway, so Poe is saying we assume to Kazuda that he has a mission for him.
Yes!
He's very excited.
Very excited.
Find out who's loyal to the good guys and who isn't.
All right, so go in, blend in, find out who's loyal to the good guys and who isn't. So it's a spy mission that he gets set on, and I've got it framed. I've got it frozen here at about 20 seconds in, and we've got another shot of the Nikto. We've got a heavyset Rhodian in the background. We also have kind of an African human. We've got a guy in the background with a really big white mustache. And then also a girl who looks a lot like one of Jabba's dancers in Star Wars and Return of the Jedi, the special edition, with sort of the speckles around the neck and around the hairline. I can't remember her name. She was added later.
Yeah, she showed up in the special edition, and she was one of Jabba's dancers. And that one I can't remember either. Damn, I should know who it is. I get so mad when I can't remember original trilogy stuff, but I'm saying, oh, hey, okay, this is special edition.
All right,
this is special edition.
It's not Griata. It's and it's not Lin Mi.
No, it's not Lin Mi.
So it's Ristal.
It is Ristal. Yes.
Ristal.
Yes, it is.
And those were the three. So there was a Rhodian.
Okay, so she's like a Ristal. So let me look at the cast list and see if I can apply some names. All right, I believe the chubby Rhodian would be Bobby Moynihan's character named Orca. Okay.
Oh, I mean, now Orca's a whale. Now that's not nice.
That's telegraphing it.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm applying. That's Orca, the Rhodian.
Uh-huh.
Joined by, Who else do we have in this freeze frame? I have to figure Myrna Velasco voices Tora Doza, and I think she's the Rayal, the Jabba's dancer. Alien.
Ristal. Okay.
Ristal, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Donald Faison voices Hype Faison. They just gave him the same last name and respelled it with a Z.
They sure did. Yeah. Donald Faison from Scrubs.
From Scrubs, right. Faison, I'm sorry.
And also from Detours.
That's right. He was the voice of one of the stormtroopers, and he appeared at Star Wars Celebration 5 to promote it.
Yep.
With Seth and George Lucas himself. Yep. They got shelved. I think just George took the money and ran. Like, well, what's your wait, George. Okay. Who else is in this freeze frame?
Well, who's the old dude back there? The old dude with the goggles and the giant mustache.
His name
looks like Inspector Gadget's boss.
He is Jim Rash, who voices Flicks.
Oh, you're thinking he's Flicks, huh?
I'm thinking he's Flicks. At first, I thought it was Vlix, who was a character.
Wait a minute. I think. Wait a minute. Hold on. Now look at the cast list here. We've got Poe's old friend Jarek Yeager.
Now we see him later.
Oh, we do.
We see him later in the trailer, I believe.
All right, so it's not the old dude with the big mustache.
And let me just say, I think it's really top notch that the great United States Air Force flying ace himself, Chuck Yeager, is now being immortalized in Star Wars. The guy, this is true. I think his name is Yeager as a tribute to the great Chuck Yeager, the first pilot who ever exceeded the speed of sound. He's still alive. He's still alive to appreciate the tribute that Star Wars is. I mean, it has to be a tribute to Chuck Yeager. It can't possibly be a tribute to Steve Yeager, the catcher for the Dodgers from the 70s. No. It's got to be a tribute to Chuck Yeager, and it makes sense because we've heard that this is a show that's about speed. It's about fast flight. Who do you think of when you think of fast flight? Well, the guy who broke the sound barrier. So that's who it is, Chuck Yeager, great American, and
that's cool.
And so that obviously is a tribute to Chuck. So I think that is a guy we see later in the. He's kind of he kind of looks like Wolfman a little, Jarek Yeager. I think we see him later in the trailer. I'll point him out when we get there.
Right. And then we have the African girl. Do we have any speculation on who that is? Is that
Susie?
Tora Doza?
Tora Doza?
Myrna Velasco, or is it?
No,
I think
it's Tam Rivora. Susie McGrath voicing Tam Rivora.
Rivora, like Geraldo Rivora.
No.
No?
No, and we're not going to break into Al Capone's vault or anything like that.
All right. Yeah, poor guy. He can't live that down. All right, so let's move ahead here. Oh, now if it's a blink and you'll miss it, but it looks like a little cameo here by, what's the name of that guy that's inside Maz's castle? The big...
Oh, Grungar.
He almost looks... Yeah. Is that him here?
Grungar. Yeah. Grungar.
It looks like Grungar here, who looks like he just looks like an oversized Trandoshan.
Yes, yeah. And so he throws the guy over the thing, and then you get a little a very. Now listen,
there it is.
There he goes. Thank you, Jason, for that.
Sure.
And then you get a very Ezra-like reaction from Kaz.
Yeah.
What was that?
What was what?
The throwing and the falling. Over there.
Don't think about it.
So, like, who is Kaz? He's like all of a sudden Woody Allen. The falling and the throwing and the falling.
He's all neurotic.
The falling and the throwing and the falling. And then I mentioned the throwing. Oh, God. So, but I again, echoes of Ezra, just that enthusiastic, real
neuroticism.
Well, Ezra never was like, I never thought of him as being like neurotic, but I'm just.
Oh, I did. A little jumpy, a little jittery, a little neurotic. I did. Yeah, for sure.
Neurotic. Interesting.
Yeah. Not erotic.
No,
neurotic.
I didn't say that. All right, let's get back to the trailer.
All right. Okay, so here they are uncovering this this ship that we were speculating about that is sort of a modified X-Wing.
Team,
Get ready to be impressed.
when it comes to your mission,
All right, now who's this cat here with the neck beard?
All right, that's where I think you're dealing with Jaeger.
This is Jaeger.
Yeah, that's why I said he kind of has a sort of Wolfman look to him.
Yeah.
Or maybe
does,
now that I look at him, he kind of gives me a more Rastafarian sort of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Like an Amish Rastafarian. Because he's got the neck beard, no mustache. It's just he's like dreads.
Yeah.
But an Amish Rastafarian. God.
All right, so he's setting him up as a
I don't want
spy.
anything to do with it.
All right.
Oh, you've got to be kidding me.
Okay, so things are going crazy here. We've got a droid sporting an X-Wing helmet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks like the innards of an astromech. Like when you see the R2 Builders Club at the convention, and there's always a display of like what the guts of these things are like and everything. That's kind of what it reminds me of. An R2 unit missing the casing, and then with some sort of different. Well, you can see it's the eye of the astromech.
Yeah,
and it's very much it's more in the style of the astromech eye from Clone Wars. Remember how
but definitely
R2,
not. Oh, the what?
You know how R2's eye sort of was in Clone Wars? It sort of looked that way.
Yes,
with that kind of angular cut to it and everything.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like just the eye, no dome.
Yeah, no dome. Yeah, this is domeless. It needs a little Rogaine.
It's an incomplete R2 unit.
Yeah.
So you could see what's going on inside and stuff. So that's kind of interesting.
So it's maybe some sort of decoy. He's throwing the helmet on, throwing it in there.
And he smacks him in the face.
A little slapsticky.
Yeah, and BB-8 disapproves.
Now here we get a good shot of these two ships. This might be, Jim, the one that's on top here, this sort of aqua and orange colored one. Could this be the one that we actually see the back end in the beginning of the trailer firing up?
Yeah, maybe. It could be.
With those
it sort of
three
looks like it
engines.
has the 3 engines in the back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we're...
I just wanted to wish my competition.
Oh!
This is fine. I'm fine. Just...
So we meet the potential love interest here.
So they're racing.
Yeah.
These two are racing.
Right. This is when he meets the girl that's better than everything than him.
Careful and don't explode.
I'll do my best.
This should be good here.
Oh, well, she looked familiar. This should be good. Who is that?
That looks
like a
like...
barkeep.
It looks like Unkar Plutt.
Yes. Yeah. So this is Mrs. Plutt.
This is the Lady Plutt.
Lady Plutt.
Lady Plutt. New from Gillette. The Lady Plutt. It waxes. It slices. It dices.
It's the Lady Plutt. All right. You're right. That is Lady Plutt. We see some stormtroopers. We see people running.
Star Wars Resistance in all
Wait, that wasn't just any stormtrooper. That was Captain Phasma.
Was that Phasma?
Yeah, you can see.
Hold on, let me. Boy, it's like a blink. You blink and you miss it.
Looks like a golden Phasma. So I mean, but that must be whatever the light source is reflecting.
Okay, all right. So the standard white stormtrooper armor wouldn't reflect that way. This has got to be the metallic.
That's got to be Phasma, and of course, Gwendolyn Christie is confirmed to be playing Phasma in the series. So she can say things like, drop your blasters.
Yes. Yeah.
I just love it when she says blaster.
She really sits on that one.
Yeah. Let's that one hang.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then back
so we get fast.
Star Wars Resistance in all new series premieres Sunday, October 7th at 10 on Disney Channel.
Oh, I do love the X-Wing skimming across the water. That's fun.
Right.
And BB-8 is obviously very excited. So that's it.
That's all she wrote. And, so, I mean, as I said before, how do you feel about this series being a natural extension of the Clone Wars, then into Rebels? Does this feel like a natural extension to you? Because to me, quite honestly, it feels like something totally different and, something new, something fresh. But I think it's going to be very localized as far as its impact on the Star Wars storyline on a whole. Unlike Rebels, unlike Clone Wars, where the events of those storylines ended up having massive implications on the way you would perceive the feature films. I don't know if this is going to have that kind of impact. I guess it will help set up the state of the galaxy leading into The Force Awakens, which I know is something that's kind of frustrated people. We just sort of got dropped into the middle of that conflict without any real setup. It was like all of a sudden a new empire is there. How did this happen? So maybe it might shine a little light on that. But all in all, I think this is just going to be a fun series for kids, something to keep the Star Wars property providing content to the Disney cable channels. Maybe something that might be more or less a placeholder until that streaming service is up and going. But it could have some legs of its own. You never know. I see the fan reaction has been dreadful.
It really has. It's been pretty brutal.
Looking at the YouTube, you got 9.9 thousand thumbs up and 58,000 thumbs down. So, people do like to protest a lot online and stuff. And I think the expectations put on this series is maybe a little bit unreasonable. I think a lot of people who click the thumbs down are people who, for years, were saying the best thing about the Star Wars Holiday Special was the animated feature with Boba Fett in there. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll take Resistance over that any day. And Resistance also looks a hell of a lot better than the Droids cartoon from the 80s and the Ewok series, too. Not that those things are without any sort of merit or value, but I think this looks a little more solid as far as its storytelling and characters go. And it sure looks pretty. I mean, the shots of the ships in flight look really cool. Mm-hmm. If anything, I do walk away a little unimpressed by the characters in these brief glimpses we get of them. They don't... The wardrobe doesn't look or feel Star Wars to me, but, they are a race team. But, I mean, they look more like something from something else. They just don't have... They sort of lack the Star Wars edge to me. I think this Jaeger character looks interesting, and I think if they could keep the storyline nice and tight, and look at there's a lot of detail in the background of some of these shots. There's this one shot where they're walking around on this landing platform, whatever it is, when the guy gets thrown over and Kaz is all freaked out about it. If you look around these shots, you see some interesting things. You see in the background there's a classic pit droid from Episode 1 doing some sort of labor there. There's one of those ASP-7 droids or whatever they were called that showed up in Mos Eisley in the special edition. All this cool little Star Wars-y detail in the background. There's a ship taking off that. I don't know what that is, but, it probably has some sort of history in Star Wars animation or something. So I think there's going to be a lot of eye candy here for people. it might play off as being more geared toward a youthful audience. Jason, I think you'll have a lot of fun watching this with your son Parker. I think this is going to be just a great kind of like a Speed Racer meets Star Wars.
Yeah, I think so too. And, for that age, they don't necessarily have the capacity to remember, episode to episode and all the details and follow along, a whole season arc. So I think these might be, certainly more standalone in terms of, how the show flows as a whole. I think it might be somewhat standalone when you look at it in, context with the whole saga, even the whole sequel trilogy, despite it being reportedly 6 months prior to the events of The Force Awakens. Once you start dropping in General Leia, once you start dropping in, we start seeing more of Poe and some of the more familiar characters from episodes 7 and 8. I think it's going to develop that Star Wars-y feel, but I'm with you in the sense that, the color palette doesn't seem to. I think it was Todd from Columbus that said, that it looks very, very different. I like it. I do like the departure to the 2D style, but kind of with you in terms of the colors and the wardrobe of the characters. It doesn't scream Star Wars. I mean, you could take BB-8 out of it. You could take the X-Wings out of it. You could take Poe Dameron out of it. And what are you left with? You're left with, something that looks like anything else that might be airing on Cartoon Network.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think they got to work on that. I mean, what is this? What is this show's place in the Star Wars mythos? What is the little bit of Star Wars mythology that it's going to carve out for itself? That's the question. Now, you mentioned earlier that some people really want to scratch the itch of knowing how the galaxy got to the place that we find it in at the beginning of The Force Awakens. I'm one of those people. I think, well, gosh, there's a story to be told there. But then part of me goes, well, wasn't that a big criticism of George Lucas, that he got too, in depth into the politics of how the galaxy worked in the prequels? Okay, maybe there's two extremes there. On the one hand, we had perhaps a little too much details about the taxation of trade routes. And on the other hand, we had absolutely no context for how the First Order sort of rose to power. You might say, well, we didn't get that initially with episode 4, 5, and 6. That's true, but that was the beginning of the story. We want to know how history started to repeat itself in the sequel trilogy. I mean, that's very important. We leave these characters having just toppled this totalitarian government, and only to find them, at the hands of another totalitarian regime. So I think they needed to create a little bit more context when bridging those two trilogies. Maybe Star Wars Resistance is going to be the one that does that.
Maybe. What do you make of the late Sunday night time slot that they're putting it in? It's going to debut Sunday, October 7th at 10 p.m. Eastern and Pacific. What do you make of that? Is that an attempt maybe to put it in a place where the fans will watch it before it gets rerun then constantly throughout the week so all the kids can see it? Or
I think it. Well, I'm of two minds about it. On the one hand, I think that we live in a time, Jim, with technology and screens everywhere, that it doesn't matter what channel and what time it's on. People are going to find it. They're going to find it on YouTube. They're going to find it on demand through their cable provider. They're going to find it, through their Disney app. So that doesn't really matter in the one sense. On the other hand, look, I have to think it shows somewhat of a lack of confidence in it. I'll be honest. A Sunday night, 10 o'clock time slot for a Star Wars animated series. Now, to be fair, Star Wars animation on television has, I think it's safe to say, in terms of ratings, it hasn't been top of the heap. I mean, they haven't been runaway hits in terms of audiences. Now, they have certainly endeared themselves to Star Wars fans. In the case of the Clone Wars, it really, I think, took on a second life, a larger life on Netflix. But, I mean, the Clone Wars days, Jim, you and I remember the kind of the attempt to make it a primetime show with it showing up on TNT there for sort of a weird period of time. They never really got it into syndication much, which is sort of the hallmark of episodic television. I don't think that Cartoon Network proved to be a very good promotional partner for the show. And then you look at Rebels, I don't know, but my hunch is that it wasn't the number one rated show on Disney XD. So the 10 o'clock on a Sunday, I think it shows a bit of a lack of confidence, and I don't want to believe that it's just an effort to keep Star Wars top of mind, and it doesn't really matter what it is. But part of me is like, is this just a placeholder for something better or bigger down the road?
Right. Yeah, just keeping the seat warm. I hope it's something that does appeal to fans of all ages, and we don't look at it and scratch our head at childish, inconsistent behavior, inconsistent with the Star Wars animated universe as we've seen so far. Maybe I might be asking for too much, and I'll probably be open-minded about it all and everything, but without having any little kids in my house, I don't know if I'll be able to watch it from the perspective of its target audience, and that could hurt my overall
Well, I'll tell you what
attention,
we'll do.
The attention I pay to this show.
We'll FaceTime you on Sunday nights, Parker and myself, and
yes,
Bailey. We'll
FaceTime
you, and Uncle Jim can join us on the couch.
Okay.
On Sunday nights. And that's the other thing. It's a little hard. My kids aren't generally up till 10 o'clock.
Oh, that's right.
Night. That's a school night,
Right.
So we'll definitely be watching it on demand, which is really how I think we're not alone in this. I think most households operate that way. There's very little appointment watching anymore. Very little in my house.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, Big Brother for you over there. But,
well, they do those live Thursday night things, and I'm hanging on Julie Chen's every word,
Well, anyway, I mean, this is great. Look, it gives us more to talk about. I mean, it's just around the corner, so I think a lot of questions are going to be answered very shortly. I'm sure we'll get another trailer or 2 or 3, some TV spots over the coming weeks. We got a lot to look forward to. We've got the Solo DVD is going to drop next month, and then just a few short weeks later, we've got the premiere of Star Wars Resistance. So plenty to keep us busy.
Yeah.
And keeping us busy here at Rebel Force Radio, we're going to go in the cantina. We haven't been in the cantina in a while. Let's go back into the cantina with our very, very special, somewhat of a surprise guest this week.
Star Wars Cantina.
Where are you going, Master? For a drink.
Sorry about the mess.
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious.
All right, it's time to give away the big secret. If you are a Rebel Force Radio Patreon subscriber and listen to Rush Hour this week, you know that Jimmy Mack teased a very special guest coming back after, I don't know, I guess we shouldn't call it an absence, but it's been a while since we've had this particular gentleman on. We're so glad and so fortunate to not just have him on, but welcome him back into the Rebel Force Radio Cantina. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's our Obi-Wan, James Arnold Taylor.
Woo!
Hello?
Oh,
wait a minute.
you punched in the wrong... Now we're taking calls.
See this new...
you punched it's the new thing, and you punched in the wrong
Must be the
line.
This is Ben from California.
Oh,
Am I
boy.
On?
Oh, Ben.
Am I on with James Arnold Taylor?
Oh, Ben, it's been Well, it's been a long time, Ben.
Yeah, Ben from California, loyal, long-time RFR listener.
I
Ben
listen
from
to every one of
California.
your shows. I love all your shows. I listen to all of them all the time. I listen to everything, and I subscribe to Patreon. I'm a very big fan of all of you guys.
We better be nice to him then if he subscribes to Patreon.
It's been a while since we've had Ben on. It sounds like you have a lot bottled up, Ben. And so how is everything in California?
I like Obi-Wan Kenobi the best. I do an Obi-Wan Kenobi. Would you like to hear my Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That'd be nice.
You have to do that when you do an impression.
Yeah, right. No, it's important to
You
do
guys
that.
can't
Maybe
see
a
me,
little
but-
warm up. Take your time, warm up.
I'm going to turn around, and then I turn around to prepare for my impression. And now I'm back. This is Jedi Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh, whoa! Ben!
He's improved. He's improved a great deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's close. But, Ben, I got a thought. That should just be your real voice. Okay, so take your Obi-Wan Kenobi impression and then just insert it in place of your real voice, and I think you really got something there.
But I can only say, this is Jedi Obi-Wan Kenobi.
That's
maybe,
the problem.
Maybe if you inflect differently, it'll send off a different message, kind of like the, I am Groot. It could be interpreted then
This is
in
General
different ways.
Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's
well, it's
all.
nice to talk to you. How are you feeling today?
I'm good. I eat before the show.
That's important. That's
Are
important.
you going to have James Arnold Taylor on the show? I like James Arnold Taylor very much.
We do too.
Yeah.
We don't want to leave him waiting either, Ben. So if it's okay, can we take a question from you that we could ask James when we actually get him on the line?
Ask him what they ate when they recorded the new Clone Wars. I'm very excited about the Clone Wars.
Something tells me that James won't be able to answer anything about the Clone Wars, but maybe what they ate during those recording sessions. We'll find out, though. We promise we'll ask you the question, okay, Ben?
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Ben from California. I don't know,
Good to
Jim,
hear
I'm
from
sorry.
Ben.
Yeah, wrong button here. I tried to get on James Arnold Taylor. I got another button here. Let's see if this is the lucky one.
Copacabana.
James.
Music.
There he is. I don't know if he can hear us.
Hey, guys.
There he is. Oh,
What is going on, man?
James
Sorry
Arnold
about the
Taylor.
delay. The strangest thing happened. Your stalker, if you remember Ben from California, he
Ben.
he
I
showed
love
up.
Ben.
Yeah,
As
I know.
far as you know. He's
Well,
fantastic.
and we are respecting the court order by not having the two of you on the show at the same time.
You can put him on. It's okay.
Are you sure?
I'll say hi to Ben. Yeah, let me say hi to Ben.
All right, let's see if
All
Ben
right,
is still
well,
waiting.
Can you still punch him up? Is he
Yeah,
on
I think
hold?
so. Well, is he on hold?
Copacabana.
Yeah, he never is not on hold. There he is. Hey, Ben. Hey, Ben. We got a special treat for you. You're on live with James Arnold Taylor. So say hi to James.
Hey, Ben.
For the first.
Ben, what's going on? Ben.
Just go ahead and ask a question, Ben.
Hi.
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 Hi. Hi. How are you?
I'm good. What do you eat when you're on Clone Wars? Clone Wars.
Clone Wars.
Clone Wars. What do I eat when I'm on Clone Wars? Generally I don't eat when I'm in the studio because I like to take care of my voice.
This is General Obi-Wan Kenobi.
What?
Now, wait, who was that?
That was Ben?
That was Ben. He's been working on this.
James Arnold Taylor is Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Okay.
Wow.
That's
What do you
very
What do you
good,
think,
man.
James?
I think he's awesome. I think that they don't need me for the new.
I was going to say, are you a little threatened?
Yeah, a little. Can you actually get rid of him then?
Yeah. No offense, Ben. But
Okay, bye-bye. I'm going to listen to your show. I love you guys. I'm on all of it, and people should do the Patreon.
Oh, thank you, Ben. Thank you. He is a loyal RFR listener, of course, and a
long
fine
time.
member of the
He's
RFR
very nice.
Patreon community.
And
James,
president of the James Arnold Taylor fan club, by the way.
He is.
Yeah.
It's great to have you back, James.
Gentlemen, you guys make my heart smile. You really do. I listen to Rebel Force Radio. I was listening to the last episode because you guys did a wonderful tribute to, just reflecting on Clone Wars and so much information in that. But it is so great to be on with you guys. I
thank
love
you.
you guys like brothers. The Force is strong with you. And my Obi-Wan is not as good as Ben's, but
no.
Yeah,
You're
so,
getting there.
so much for having me on.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure and thrill, and you're welcome anytime. But I mean, what a great occasion to have you on, with this incredible announcement that the Clone Wars will be returning, and not just returning, but be one of the flagship programs in the initial kickoff of the Disney streaming service, which we're all, especially in my house, very excited to have that Disney catalog at our fingertips. Like that.
You know, and let's be clear, they're not giving us that for free either. We're going to be streaming, at the Taylor house. I'm going to be buying the streaming. So when everybody kind of goes, oh, great, now I got to buy a service. Yeah, so do I.
And you're on the thing. I mean, that's...
I'm on it.
Well,
the more things change, the more they say the same. You had to pay for your cable bill back in the old Cartoon Network days.
That's true. That's very true.
No free handouts.
No.
Even for Jedi Masters.
That's right.
But I mean, what an incredible announcement! Of course, the tease was that, or I should say, the premise was that San Diego Comic-Con was going to be a celebration, looking back on the 10th anniversary and 10 years of the legacy of the Clone Wars animated series, and you guys had a little something extra up your sleeve.
Really, just crazy, yeah. Because we knew about it for months beforehand, because we had been in the studio. There was the trailer there and such, and everything, and some other little things. And so, you got your assessments of it have been, pretty spot on in that. There's little things here and there, but we've been posting pictures. Like, for example, over the last week or so, you may have seen Ashley and all of us post a picture of all of us together. You can take hints when you see those things that maybe we're doing stuff. But we knew about it for a very long time, and boy, is it hard. That's why I wouldn't talk to you guys. You're like,
oh, that's why.
I don't want to say anything.
That's why. Well, you know what? I mean, you say that there might have been little hints dropped here and there. We follow this stuff pretty closely. Truly, never in my wildest dreams did I think that was going to happen. I really didn't.
That's good then, I guess. A few people said we should have seen it because I have a beard right now. And I have a very, kind of old Ben beard because it's all white. And everybody was like, we should have seen it as a hint. And you should have, because it actually was a hint, because I was growing it back. I was growing it back for a movie that I'm doing. But then also I went, well, I'm going to do it for these photo shoots with Ashley that we did. And me in my Jedi robe. Have you guys seen those photos?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Those are amazing.
I like how you put the white powder in your beard, James.
No.
That is real. That is commitment.
God bless you, my friend. Yeah.
Commitment.
Now, James, you dropped a big clue there. You said you were growing that beard for a film you're going to be in. Is it true that it's the Obi-Wan Kenobi standalone film? This is. I've been waiting for this.
That's the news here today. Yes. Sorry, Ewan.
Yep.
They called me first. George Lucas. The women at The View got it right. George Lucas called me.
George Lucas. It's going to be an after-school special on ABC. It's going to be an after-school special.
Let me say, I hope they are listening to Rebel Force Radio, and they are listening to Jimmy Mack saying a 10-episode TV show with Ewan McGregor. Because I'm telling you guys, that's the way to go.
That would be legendary. It would kill.
Yeah,
it would absolutely kill. And it could go down just really some revolutionary, groundbreaking television. Just tell his story in 10 episodes of that live action show.
And don't make the movies all the time. Just do that, and then make every 3 years we got to wait for a movie again. I like the excitement of waiting.
We were just talking about that, as a matter of fact, that there is something to be said during those, when you look at the pacing of the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, 3 years just kind of felt right. Or maybe it was just the rhythm we got into. Now, that like 15-year drought between trilogies I could have done without, but still, it certainly helped create this... this aura that surrounds Star Wars, and it was sort of its absence. I think, Jim, you said on Rush Hour this week, it was sort of the absence that helped it sort of grow and become a bigger thing. What I think is the most fascinating James, is I remember, in our early days of podcasting, talking to you as the Clone Wars film was coming out and the show was in its infancy, and it wasn't one of those things that just immediately the fan community just rallied around it. It took some time. What is it like for you now, standing 10 years from it? And it's the Clone Wars that seems to unite Star Wars fans, saying that's when it was running on all cylinders. That's nostalgia for me. That's Star Wars. That's got to be a trip.
It is very much that, and it's very much what you guys talked about in the last episode. So if people haven't heard that, they need to go back and listen to that one too, because it's that as well as what Jimmy was talking about of 10 years. Oh, in 10 years they'll do something, but now they did it in half that time. It's weird because on one hand, when we're in the studio together, it feels like no time has passed, and on the other, my beard is very white, and it feels like, come on, guys, it's about freaking time.
Yeah.
And it really is amazing, exactly what you were just saying, Jason, that people now are using it as a device to unite behind. And, it's also... it's such a mess because when George was in charge of it, everybody was angry at George. And Disney's in charge of it, and everybody's kind of like, oh, man, what are you guys doing? And then they kind of long for George, and it's kind of like, and I'm just sitting there going, yeah, see? You should have just listened to the creator, the master, the maker of it, guys.
Yeah.
I was thinking, as I was listening to your guys' last episode, I thought, wouldn't it be a trip, because he could do it, if he went, I got $4 billion. I'll buy it back from you guys. Wouldn't that be like...
I think he spent some of it.
Do you remember
he spent some of it?
Yeah, he spent
really...
most of it away, I think. But
honestly, by this time, he's probably spent a couple billion on pizza and beer alone. So, I know I would.
I would too. But okay, so you remember back in the 80s, Coke was losing the battle of the soda battles, so they put out New Coke. And then Pepsi, because Pepsi was number one for the first time ever. So they put out New Coke, and guess what? It tasted just like Pepsi. And so then everybody complained, and they brought back Classic Coke. Now, not a lot of people know that was literally a ploy on their part to get back to number one, and they've been number one ever since. So they knew they were going to take a hit for a few years. Maybe that's what George is doing. He gave it to Disney. Now he's going to buy it back.
Oh, my gosh.
And everybody's going to be like, oh. And then he's going to go, guess what? 7 and 8 and 9. Yeah, no, those didn't happen. Here's the real story.
It was New Coke.
It was
7, 8, 9.
That's my theory.
Wow.
Star Wars classic. Have a 12-pack. But, I think that's wishful thinking.
Yeah, I know.
I would have loved a scenario, and perhaps it's still possible or happening behind the scenes, and we just don't know it.
Right.
Where George Lucas himself actually offers some input on Episode 9, since it really is going to be the thing that ties up the Skywalker saga.
That makes
me sad. I thought it would be, well, that makes to see it actually in the press release in black and white for the first time.
Yeah,
this is going to wrap it all up. This is it. That does it's affected me on a different level than actually I could have ever predicted.
Yeah,
because I was still holding on to the thought that there could be 12 films left.
Yeah,
to complete the Skywalker saga, you have 12 parts.
Yep.
But no, they've made it official. So the clock is ticking, is how I look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, boy, I don't know. I've been very fortunate, very blessed, and thankful and humble to be in all of these last 4 films, my voice, and in various places. And, people are like, oh, where are you? Where are you? It's like, well, you just got to listen for me. You can hear me. I'm throughout the whole thing.
No. That's too difficult. I need to know. Where can we hear you? In the Force Awakens, where do we hear you?
In The Force Awakens, I am a couple of troopers. And Matt Lanter and I actually had lines when Kylo Ren is wrecking the place and those 2 troopers come up and then they turn around and walk away. Originally, Matt and I actually voiced a thing. They thought it would be great to have Obi-Wan and Anakin voicing that. And we were doing like, have you seen those new K-12s? Well, I think we'll go this way. It was that kind of a thing. But we do have some lines in there, both of us. Matt's is very clear. It's in when they're down on the planet there and he comes up and says something. He gives a command, and I have one like that. And then I'm also many of the the bad guys, the British guys, talking in the room when chaos is going on there. And, you know. Isn't it funny? I would never say this with one of the old Star Wars movies. I'd tell you exactly the scene, exactly the guy, what he looked like, what his name was.
Yeah.
And these new ones, I'm like, I don't know, I'm one of those guys in the thing with the place.
No, you literally said you can hear Matt real clearly. He's down on the planet there, and he's yelling that thing there. And then
you sound like everybody. You sound like everybody's dad describing. I don't know, the kid's down with the thing and the
So, and I think, so I'm one of the aliens when Finn is trying to get water, and the guy goes, you know that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I love those guys.
Yeah. And then in, let's see, in Rogue One, I did a bunch of voices in that. I am not certain. I have not heard this from Matt Wood yet, so please, this is the first place I'm sending it out there, because when I watched it, at the end with the and the guys are doing the things for the Death Star, and that voice comes on, that classic voice that what is the line now? See, now it's ridiculous. I can't remember it, but prepare for commence primary ignition. Commence primary ignition. Yep. I think that's me, because we redid it, and 3 of us did it. Me, David Collins, and one other person said that line because they couldn't use the original for some reason. And I think it's me in there saying that. So
okay, well, we'll have to review.
And then in Last Jedi, various troopers and bad guys and good guys and all that throughout. But then I am the little guy on the kind of the craps table. Place your bets. Place your bets. All bets are off. Yeah, and then he runs and jumps off the table when it explodes and things.
I love that little guy.
Yeah, that's me.
He's like the little plankton of The Last Jedi. He's like plankton from SpongeBob.
I think it's also it's actually Luke Skywalker's pride. He just runs away and then Okay, too soon. Sorry.
That's right. That's right. And then in Solo, I am Clint Howard. Ron Howard's brother has a little cameo in there.
Yeah.
And he was not available for doing his grunts and groans and stuff. So when he gets grabbed in the face by the robot, and it's like he comes out of the cage going, "Let me tell you," and then they say, "Let him drop him," and then he drops him and he goes, "Ugh." That's me. And then there's a big bald guy kind of in the background going, "Okay, everybody, come on, give me the bets over there." That's me. And so there's a bunch.
Amazing.
Bunch.
I'm always, I'm always most fascinated by those grunts and groans.
Yeah.
Because you gotta, as silly as it sounds, you can't walk into that voice booth with any inhibitions at all.
No, it's a total art form.
Yeah.
And I've been in the room with celebrities and on-camera actors that just get so in their head. Yeah. And then the director goes, "James, could you stay after?" And I know what that means.
Do you think it's because some of them are afraid to look silly, or
because their whole career is based on their looks and what they do, and I'm not knocking them in any way either. That is just
different.
They're just not used to it, and most of them, God bless them, will say they'll turn to us and go, "This is a lot harder than it looks," and I go, "Yeah." Well, not for me, but for you.
Some people got it, some people don't.
Oh, some people have a way with the language. Other people...
I'll be like, listen, I got my ass kicked so many times when I was a kid. I can remember it like it was yesterday. Start rolling tape.
Well, so the Clone Wars. So I got to ask, I don't know, and stop us if there's something that you can't say, but can you give us an idea of when you found out and how the news might have been delivered to you, or was it something that kind of percolated in the rumor mill and you heard whispers, or how did you first hear?
I'm looking up. Okay, so I know exactly when I heard. It was
at Comic-Con on stage.
Now I'm like Sophia on the Golden Girls. Yeah. Picture it. February 6th, 2018.
Sicily.
10:45 a.m. And I just pulled it up on my calendar here. And the reason I did that is because it was when we were recording dialogue for Solo. And that's when I first heard. I heard rumors of it. Then by the next session, it was confirmed. So, yes.
That's cool.
February 6th, 2018. A day that will live in infamy. Do you guys know what the kind of the code name was for Solo, the movie?
Red Cup.
Yeah, Red Cup. Yeah,
that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that's what I looked up on my calendar. Red Cup.
So all the correspondence was about Red Cup.
Last Jedi was. Do you know what that one was?
What was Last Jedi? Oh, wait a minute. It's something with 8 in it. No, it wasn't.
Space Bear.
Space Bear, that's right.
I don't know if I'm giving away stuff that I'm not supposed to give away, but
no, it's all out there.
That's out there.
Well, episode 9 was Black Diamond.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. Who is, by the way, you can look him up online, an incredible African American Neil Diamond impersonator.
Really?
No, really?
Oh, yeah. There is, honest to God, there is a Neil Diamond tribute artist, African American guy, and he goes by Black Diamond, and he is fantastic. So you've never heard Sweet Caroline like that.
We're coming to Alderaan. We're coming to Alderaan.
But they've changed that from Black Diamond to something else.
Wow.
Something that has because 9, it's a 1X.
1X.
So there's something
like
with
Pixie or something like that.
Yeah.
Pixies.
Wow.
Or something.
Well, considering all that I've said here, they won't be having me to do voices on that one, so I won't be able to tell you. But
we just have to look at James's calendar entries for these bizarre movie titles, so we'll know what it is. But that's got to be pretty cool to actually go and see a Star Wars movie on the big screen and hear your voice. And
it is very weird. Yeah, because again, all of us, we grew up with this, and it was totally different then, but it is still the same, the same font, the same color, the same thing. It's a Star Wars movie. There's music's playing, and you just go, oh my gosh. I mean, but that's how it was, with Clone Wars. It's been like that for almost 18 years now that I've been associated with Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's amazing. And, it's amazing, too, because it can be almost 18 years, one movie, over 100 episodes, countless video games, toys, all these things. And everybody goes, boy, that Ewan McGregor's the best Obi-Wan Kenobi in the world. And you just go, yeah. And he is. I'm not denying it, but he only did 3 movies.
Right.
Right.
I'm kidding.
He may be good, but he's not prolific.
Well, you probably flubbed more Obi-Wan Kenobi lines than he ever spoke. We'll put it that way. Right?
Yeah.
Wow.
There's more Obi-Wan Kenobi bloopers of you than there is of actual Ewan McGregor.
That sounds. Although Filoni, I found out he told me a couple days ago that he calls me One Take Taylor. So I was very impressed by that.
You are One Take Jake. That's the guy. We all want to be One Take Jake. But now it's One Take Taylor.
I don't know. Though. I mean, I felt like that was a lot of pressure, And
well, your next session after that.
You're stuttering like crazy. Did I get in your head? He's totally trolling you.
Yeah.
Classic Filoni. Classic Filoni.
Yeah.
Well, you were.
No, go ahead, James. That'll be great. My Dave Filoni is just David Spade, by the way.
What was your first?
Go ahead, Jim.
No, but before we get too far away from looking back at 18 years of Obi-Wan Kenobi, what was your first Obi-Wan gig? It wasn't the Genndy series. It was.
2001 is when we started. See, it came out in 2002, so we were a year behind, So it was 2001. So it was 17. Like I say, it's almost 18 years. I'm rounding up to make it sound more important, but it's been 17 plus years now. So I think my first line was, "I'm on my way," and yeah,
it takes me back.
I auditioned for that, and what was that? That was Anakin. Anakin, and I said Anakin like 20 different ways on that show because there were so few lines. We'd go in, it would literally take me longer to park than it would to record the lines.
It wasn't that long ago I went back and revisited that series, which I absolutely love because for so many reasons. I'm a big fan of Genndy Tartakovsky, all his stuff, Dexter's Lab, Johnny Bravo, Samurai Jack, all of it. But it also takes me right back to that incredible anticipation between episodes 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And just, it was like a 3-minute show, each episode, and you would just be like, no, keep going. This is amazing. Star Wars on TV. And then that was sort of like the promise, and then Clone Wars, the series proper, was sort of like the fulfillment of that promise, what we always knew and hoped that a Star Wars series could be.
It was so wild. I remember I got back from China. We had adopted our daughter from China, and I was back about, 3 or 4 days, and I had to go in and meet this guy, Dave Filoni, and this writer, Henry Gilroy, and Andrea Romano was going to be there, and they were going to just, have me read. I was actually reading for both Anakin and Obi-Wan. And
really? No kidding.
Because they were auditioning for Anakin, and I was like, guys, I can't read Anakin, but I'll give it a crack. But so they're like, what would it sound like? So I was in there with them doing both lines. So I was doing Obi-Wan and saying something to Anakin, and then I would have to do it. But I was like, I can't do him. It's like I was so stuck in my head about Hayden, it's almost Christopher Walken, Jedi Council. It's ridiculous. They never do this before. It's insulting. Padme.
He hits these syllables. You're right, in the most strange pattern.
So I couldn't get Christopher Walken out of my head, so I just went in doing Christopher Walken. Obi, you should go to the planet. It's good. Drink. R2, D2, C3PO.
The pauses, it is. But even then, you were doing this where you do both sides of the conversation, which I'm sure you have run into. You worked with anybody and everybody in your business. I'm sure that there are some that can't do that. That rapid, like, split personality thing where you can play both sides of the conversation and get the timing right. That's a rare gift.
Well, you have to be a little psychotic. So
that helps, right?
No, it is. The thing is that we all love it, like Dee and myself and Tom Kane and Corey Burton. And, it's like the director will go, well, we can break it up. And you're like, no. We want to do it that way.
Yeah.
So Obi-Wan Kenobi is talking in that episode with Plo Koon, and Master Plo Koon is giving the orders and telling all of the clones about everything. And then Obi-Wan Kenobi would come in and with another line, and then Plo would come in again. And, so it's just and then we had O.C. Sobek in there. Oh, yeah. Jedi Resolve, which was actually Christopher Walken. You guys know that story, right? That Dave Filoni called me up one day and goes, I'm thinking, what would Christopher Walken sound like as an alien? And throw some stuff down and play with it. Give me some that are completely Christopher Walken, some that are moved away from him, some that are kind of halfway there. So they sent me this script, or lines of the script from the Citadel.
Yes.
And I just played with it. So some were, Chris Walken, and so like I do a lot of doubling for him. So when you do that, it's not, like I'm overdoing it right now. But if you're doing Christopher Walken just talking, it would just be like this, because this is how he talks.
God.
That's it.
Holy
That's it.
cow, that's dead on.
So you just, if I'm here and I'm saying, Jason, Jimmy, that might be the biggest you get, right?
Yeah.
So I did some like that, and then I did, bigger, and then I gave him a little of that, and then I thought it's kind of Al Pacino too.
It is. It is a little Pacino.
So
yeah.
You combine a little Al Pacino and a little Christopher Walken, you get O.C. Sobek.
Oh my God! The last time we were speaking of Pacino, I brilliant actor, right?
Yes.
How did that guy go from being that subtle, cool Michael Corleone in '72 to what you just did? Like, what happened?
He's like, in The Godfather, he's like, okay, my father's a very dangerous man. And then, Scent of a Woman, he's like, hoo-ha!
When
did the transition happen?
Yeah. Yeah, he delivers these real subtle performances there.
Yeah.
I mean, he's brilliant. I mean, don't get me wrong.
He is, but
the guy's
it is
brilliant,
a weird transition. I mean, I say that in my stage show when I go through the voices, and I say, "You ever notice Al Pacino slowly turning into Jim Ignatowski from Taxi?" Okay. Oh, scent of a woman. Oh, Marty.
What I think what's interesting, and I heard Dana Carvey talk about this one time, where he would say that there's a difference between doing an impression, an impersonation, and then actually really trying to sound like the person. So your Christopher Walken is fascinating. So I mean, you'll kind of amp it up and turn it on.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah,
caricature, caricature, right? But if you're, because I think James, you did him as Zorn, the Bond villain, on a video game, didn't you?
Yeah, and that was very much. It was just Mr. Bond. You're quite the player. It was that, and you just had to just play him just straight. And the game came out, and they said Christopher Walken was great in this game. And I thought, wow, that was good. It did good.
That is good. That is good. When they don't know,
I guess.
Yeah, when they don't know. that happened with Christian Bale. I was doing some of his doubling for the first Batman movie, and they played him some of my voice accidentally when they were getting him in character to do the video game stuff. The director told me.
No kidding.
And yeah, they're like, yeah, we played this trailer. And I'm like, well, half of that trailer is me and not him. I'm like, oh. Oops. And Jay Baruchel.
And Christian didn't know either.
He didn't know either. Yeah, he didn't know either. But Jay Baruchel, we do the dragon, How to Train Your Dragon stuff, and there was the TV show, and so I would lay down all of his scratch vocals. So they would bring me in, and I would record the entire episode of everything first, and then they'd bring him in later to do it. And so Jay Baruchel's voice is there, and you just kind of do the lines. And so they played him that, and they said, we need to record this over. And he said, why? And they said, because it's not you. And he went, ow. So that guy is, wow, he's good.
I'll say my kids, they in our house, they just discovered those movies.
Oh,
and they are so good. I said to my wife, I'm like, how did it take us this long to find these movies? They've been out for a while. Third one's coming out. And they're obsessed with the Netflix series, and they're having such a good time.
Yeah, so I'm on that series as other characters too. But and the new movie is going to be fantastic. It is really going to wrap it all up so well.
Oh, yeah, I'm excited.
I can tell you that. I do his voice, and then I do Fish Legs, which is Christopher Mintz-Plasse. And so yeah.
Yeah.
Super bad.
I hear a little Michael J. Fox in there.
There is a little Michael J. Fox in him, yeah. But that's really how he sounds. It's, oh, hey, how are you? Yeah, It's fun.
So you got Clone Wars coming up, obviously,
yeah,
and that's a big deal. And did you guys? And again, James, if this is stuff that you can't say, just stop us. But I know that before the show was, I hate to use the word canceled, because it's so unbefitting the greatness that was that show. I mean, truly, when I think about like greatest animated series of all times, like two come to mind: Batman the Animated Series and Clone Wars. They just knocked it out of the park, and I think they're going to stand the test of time and be a high benchmark for those two franchises for a long time.
Right.
But when the show ended, I know that production had continued and was well past the marker. So in terms of your work, your voiceover work, have you had to go back in and do more stuff? Is it a lot of the stuff that was recorded before? What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I can tell you. I know that, like, on your last one, you had a caller saying, they'd remembered somebody mentioning up to, like, season 8. And I may have even said some stuff about that as well. I didn't say we recorded season 8, but that we knew we were going to do up to season 8. And I believe, Jimmy, you were right that Christian Taylor did also mention, they were already working on storylines for season 8. They were. I mean, they were fleshing those out. And so we had recorded... So season 6 was already pretty much done. And I thought that the last stuff I did, I don't think this is a big deal to say because it's the cat's been out of the bag for a long time. The last stuff I recorded was within season 7, like well within season 7.
Mm.
So,
oh,
we were always ahead because, again, remember, we worked on the Clone Wars for 2 years before it came out.
Yeah.
So when season 1 came out, we were way into season 2 recording, and then off into season 3 pretty quickly thereafter. So we were always so far ahead. It made it so hard to do interviews or anything to talk about stuff because you were just like, and now we're kind of in that mode again. Thankfully, like Matt Lanter, he's like, I have the, because Matt works so much and has to memorize so many lines for TV and movies and all the stuff he does that he's kind of a machine. He takes it in and then it's gone. So he's got the right thing, like, because he goes, I can't remember. So he can honestly go, I can't remember. Unfortunately, I'm Rain Man, and so I remember everything I've ever recorded. So it's really hard for me to say anything because I just don't know what will be used, what won't be used, where it's at, what's going to be going on in there. Because again, season 6 was shorter than it was supposed to be too, and we recorded all of season 6. So yeah.
Well, Dave Filoni did say, and I don't remember if I read this quote last week, but he did say in an interview here, he says, without getting into too much detail because I love fan speculation, but it would be, because this is answering the question, are you going to be using the existing material that was already laid out? He said, he goes, but it would be a real shame to have done all this work and not use it. So we're looking at everything and going over all the scripts we had. He says, I think the biggest thing for me is how do we make this show better? And I think that means examining all the work we had done, the work we were planning on doing, and also trying to honor the work of so many that were in the middle of making stuff. So, and he also says that he himself had to go back to Clone Wars school, and review a bunch of. Did you do any of that, James? Did you have to kind of go back and revisit, or do you I know it's hard to say when you're a part of something like that, but I also know you're a great big Star Wars fan. Do you also, throw it on Netflix once in a while and just?
Absolutely. Well, and this gives you some. This is how I answer your question without answering your question that you asked earlier too. So, yes, I did go back to watch some things to kind of reacquaint myself. So whether or not we went back in the studio, you can read into that yourself.
Okay.
But yeah, absolutely. My daughter is a huge Clone Wars fan now. She's 13 now. She's finally watched, and she's watched through the whole thing, all 6 seasons, twice. She loves it all. She's got the Clone Wars encyclopedia. She's got, she grew up with everybody. They're all her friends or, uncles and aunts, basically, which is weird. But so we had been watching it. And then I was doing my show, Clone Wars Conversations, and so I was watching a bunch of it to catch up on that and to, when I would interview everybody. And then I just started showing her the prequels. So that's been very convenient because I lived and breathed Attack of the Clones for the most part when we were recording Clone Wars. And I very rarely would watch Revenge of the Sith because I tried to keep my brain in Obi-Wan's place where Attack of the Clones was. So
yeah.
I had to reacquaint myself here recently, yes.
All right. So you're saying there's a chance.
Had to. He had to.
He had to.
Because
like it was his job.
See?
Because I'm a fan,
Right.
James, did you find, just to turn the clock back to when the show was announced that they were going to stop production on it, were you preparing to go in and record some new episodes, and the announcement was made and you were like, I really wanted to, I was really looking forward to doing this?
It was, I had just come back. I was doing a USO tour in Japan, and I was at LAX, and my cell phone rings, and it's Dave Filoni and Carrie Silver, and I just kind of knew. And they broke the news to me, so I had a long drive back. I was living in Santa Barbara at the time, which was my hometown, and waiting for my luggage, talking to them on the phone, and because just a few weeks prior to that, we had done a USO show. All of us went down to in San Diego, and it was Dave, it was Matt, Kat, Ashley, Dee, myself. We all went out there. We showed some episodes to the troops. We got to go on these gigantic, beautiful planes and stuff, and just had such a great time. And Carrie was there, and we were all talking about the upcoming season.
Right.
And, and the work we were doing. But, is there speculation? Because at that time, Disney did already now own us. And so we were kind of like, well, we're keeping our fingers crossed. And then, cut to a month later, and I'm on the phone at LAX going, oh, we're done. It was a bummer. Yeah, it was. I don't think any of us were really ready for that. I wish that there was a caveat when he sold it to them to say, instead of $4 billion, give me 3.7, and let's finish the Clone Wars.
Yeah. I think there were actually attempts made by George to maintain some sort of creative input.
Yeah.
And it came down to this quote I read years ago. I believe it was Alan Horn, who is a big shot over there at Disney. And he said, the company wasn't interested in buying a certain percentage. They wanted the whole thing.
Right.
And that was really a major part of the deal. And so I think, something like George doing that, it could never be considered by Disney. I don't think they would have accepted that.
Yeah, and again, they made a big business purchase, and it's a business, and they're doing their thing. I'll just never forget the first year I hosted Star Wars Weekends, which was the big event in Florida every year, and I got to host that 5 years. The first year was 2011, I believe. And we're backstage because it was when Star Tours had been refurbished and redone, and we were doing this big celebration of the opening of Star Tours again. And George Lucas is there, so I'm backstage with George Lucas and Iger. I was going to say Eisner.
Bob
Sorry.
Iger.
Oh, Bob Iger, right? Mm-hmm. And Ashley Eckstein, Dave Filoni, Daniel Logan, and Anthony Daniels, and.
Now that's a party right there.
There's a party right there, yeah.
Just two of Logan there. I mean,
forget it. Yeah, Daniel. That was the best part. Was George didn't recognize Daniel at first because he was used to him being, little Boba,
a kid,
right?
And it hit him. It was actually very sweet, and because George was then like, oh my gosh, it's Daniel. That was neat, because it's like, you're this big man now, you're crazy too. Because Daniel is crazy. I love him to death. He's just the sweetest, craziest guy. So we're backstage for about a half an hour while, there's 15,000 people out there, and they're doing the pre-show stuff and everything. And I'm standing like a foot from both of them while they're having a conversation. And George is selling the heck out of Bob Iger on Clone Wars. I mean, he's just going on and on about it and how cool it is and what it is and what we've created. And there's this and there's this, and Dave's chiming in with stuff. And it was just this, I just remember looking at Ashley kind of like, this is a surreal moment, isn't it? And it was beautiful though, because George was like a little kid explaining like this, this wonderful thing he created. And it was so neat. And now you look back and you go, oh, they were having a conversation about it because he was trying to go, hey, look. So when, I'm sure there was some talks going on at that point. But
oh my God, it's so legit. Exactly what you're saying. That was the genesis. That morning was the genesis of the entire deal.
Wow.
Iger and Lucas went out to breakfast, and over pancakes and omelets, George, or somehow it came up like, hey, if you're ever interested in selling, I hope you call us first. And George is like, sounds interesting, whatever. But I think that was really, there's documentation out there online about that pancake breakfast that Iger and Lucas had that very morning that they opened the revamped Star Tours.
Yeah.
And you were there.
I was there.
You were there.
Man. And, the crazy thing is the guys from Spike TV were over in the corner trying to get them to, sell it to them. But that's a good thing that didn't happen. Can you imagine now? Spike TV. Oh, sorry. I had to find a punchline. I was there. It is very weird and very surreal. And yeah, he was selling him on it. And so I wish they
row of history for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, weird, right? Yeah. That's weird.
Yeah. So we blame you. So
well, he wasn't there.
I stood there going, it's really cool. you should buy it. It's very cool.
Well, that's just...
I'd buy it. You know, I'll tell you what. If I had your money, Iger, I'd buy it. James Arnold Taylor, I'm out.
That's right. And then we all went on stage, and there's that picture. You can see it online. I have a huge, like, framed version that they gave me afterwards of all of us on stage together. It's really wild.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, when you flip through your IMDb, everyone should do this. Go to IMDb and flip through James Arnold Taylor's credits you I mean, the amount of work that you have done is just absolutely insane. I mean, you scroll down, 3/4 of the page, and you're still like in 2013, which is not that long ago. One caught my eye, and I may put you on the spot a little bit.
Oh, sure.
You did the voice of Fezzik, made famous by, of course, Andre the Giant, the late Andre the Giant, in the Princess Bride video game.
Yes.
Do you remember doing that? Do you remember?
Oh, yes, very much so. I did. So I do these things called Jat Drives on my YouTube channel, and I did one about it where I told the whole story, and I even played my audition because I was the least likely person to book the job of voice matching Andre the Giant. I mean, see,
incredible.
For people that are listening that don't know, I'm 5'4". I'm 125 pounds soaking wet, and it's just not going to happen. So I love the movie. I love him, and
so you just have to find the ways of doing the voice. Anybody want a peanut? I could kill you if I tried. My way is not so sportsmanlike.
Yeah, he's just so. I learned this from Billy West, the great Billy West.
Oh, love Billy West.
Ren and Stimpy,
and
Bugs
of course,
Bunny and George Jetson, and I mean so many amazing. And Futurama, he's Fry, he's Zoidberg, he's the Professor. Billy is amazing talent.
Oh, he was a regular on the Howard Stern show back in the 90s, doing some of the funniest radio I've ever heard.
And do you know that I was actually, and still am, the voice of the big announcer voice on the Howard Stern show? Did you know that?
No.
Yeah.
I didn't.
It's
been a while since I've actually listened.
Yeah, me too. But somebody told me recently that they're still using it. So if you ever hear, it's a very special Howard Stern show, that's me.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah, and I did a bunch of
everywhere.
I used to produce a bunch of stuff for him as well because I was just trying to be like Billy West. And and so Billy and I are doing a table read for a movie that never got made, and which happens a lot. You do these things and you read on them and they record them and then they try to get celebrities in and then it never gets made. It was a movie called A Cat's Tale or something. But and so we're reading these and they said, could you do kind of a like a Lee Marvin type voice or something to, was it Lee Marvin? Somebody like that to Billy. And he's like, and Billy, Billy's got this voice and he's kind of like, he's like that. And it's like, you got to find these pockets in your mouth to try and kind of make it work.
And so he starts doing this big voice, and he's doing this kind of thing.
And I watched him, and he unlocked the code for me. You know when somebody unlocks the code of an impression for you, and you can do it. It was like that, and so I went, oh.
So you find the places to put it, and then you put in an accent, and you just do it like that.
So so thanks to Billy West, I can now do that, and that probably had something to do with some of my Fred Flintstone work too and stuff, because that's
all right down in there too. Yeah.
In fact, I just saw a. Are you doing Fred for the Fruity Pebbles commercials? I know you did for a while.
It's not
right?
me anymore. I got replaced.
Well, the new guy I think sounds like you, so I think he's doing you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
I saw him on.
Interesting because.
I just want to know real quick because you were in the airport. And Dave Filoni and Carrie Soder, they called you and said,
back to that.
We're done with the clone. So when you got news that you were no longer the voice of Fred Flintstone, did Mr. Slate call you?
Flintstone? Yes, Mr. Slate. You're fired. But Mr. Slate. Oh, boy. Wilma? Cancel the Bronto Burgers.
Hey, Fred, I got your job.
Oh, you backstabber!
Because
Arnie, you backstabber!
The guy that does the voice, that was doing the voice of Barney Rubble with me on all the commercials, he ended up doing Fred on quite a few things. And he does an amazing Fred Flintstone. His name is Jeff Bergman. He's a wonderfully talented guy. He does Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck and all these wonderful. And he does an amazing Fred. He did him for Family Guy and all of those. But yeah, he was the voice of Barney Rubble.
Et tu, Barney?
Yeah.
Sorry, Fred.
I was actually watching. I went back and started watching some of these. They're just horrible. But nostalgia factor. I've been watching the old Planet of the Apes cartoon series from the 70s. Yeah. And James, you'll know that. I think you'll know the name of the voice actor, but he had to have been the Fred Flintstone from the 70s. And he plays
Reed.
Yes, and he plays one of the gorillas.
Yeah,
General Urko. But it's Fred Flintstone in Planet of the Apes.
Because Alan
Cornelius.
I mean, it's actually it's very kind of like famously known within the world there that, and he would say to the directors, "I want to do this character or that." They go, "Alan, every voice you do sounds like Fred Flintstone."
So you see him in things, and he's doing that.
It's just Fred,
right?
And so he couldn't sing, he couldn't carry a tune. So anytime Fred Flintstone sang, it was Henry Corden. And Henry was the one that replaced Alan when Alan passed away. And Henry then became the voice of Fred for the next 30 years. And then Henry chose me, along with the directors and stuff there, to be the next voice. And so
Henry was a little more Jackie Gleason, He was a little
right?
more there.
Yeah.
Post Fruity Pebble cereal, instead of Post Fruity Pebble cereal.
Oh,
so I tried to combine both of them.
Yeah.
And but yeah, really fascinating. Just like I tried to combine a little Alec with a little Ewan in my Obi-Wan.
Right, yeah, wow. And that's the formula. But what's really interesting is how some of these you go to. Like with a Fred Flintstone, it's like you become the steward of that character for a period of time, and then it may go to someone else. And I've always wondered, is there, when you become Fred or you become Bugs Bunny or whatever, is there some sort of code of conduct that would prevent you from, like what's to stop you from like going on a radio show and just like as Fred, just, letting it rip, everything Fred really wanted to say to Mr. Slate, for example. But is there, or is it up to the actor? Yeah, right.
You respect what you're doing. Now there's also though, when somebody is the voice, there's a code of conduct within voice actors that is supposed to happen, that when you're already the voice, other voice actors, when they start auditioning for it, should not read for it. Because generally speaking, the reason why they usually are is it's a money deal. And, somebody's trying to renegotiate or something. And but with mine, with the thing, what happened with Fred was it was with the same ad agency for about 30 years, and then they lost the account. For Fruity Pebbles.
Okay.
And the new guys just didn't like me. And they went and did a whole new audition, and they auditioned another couple hundred people, and I did it again and got the gig again, and then eventually they just replaced me. So, it happens.
Yeah, sure.
But, all my friends, from Tom Kane to Corey Burton and all in between, would text me. They're reading for Fred Flintstone. I'm not reading on it, man. Okay, good. Thank you, buddy.
Oh, that's so great. I mean,
that's loyalty.
Yeah, that speaks to the community, of
it does.
Of voice actors.
Yeah.
And,
very different than
it's not a very large community either.
No.
For the people who are really, making a difference in the community, in the industry. Yeah. The community of voice actors is actually rather small, I've noticed.
It is when you think about it. Yeah, when I think about it and look at it, it really is. And there is a reason for it. They are all tremendous actors. They really are. And it happens time and time again where they will then recast with celebrities, and then they'll end up hiring all of us to do the celebrity's voice, later on. And you kind of go, okay.
Yeah, I remember we had, I believe it was Michael Bell we had on.
Michael Bell. Michael Bell. Yeah, that's his voice right there.
Oh my God! Yeah, that's right. I mean, what a trip! I mean, as a kid that grew up, in the '80s and grew up with GI Joe, to talk to Duke, it was just a thrill. And but we had this conversation. We were talking about the Smurfs, and at that time, the Smurfs movies were coming out. Yeah. And I said, "Why is it?" I said, "If I want to take my kids to the Smurfs." I want to take them to the Smurfs, and I want them to be the voices I grew up with. Why does it have to be, Britney Spears as Smurfette when the wonderful woman at the time, and she may still be, still alive, still sounds like Smurfette.
Yeah,
it drives me crazy why they do that.
Drives me crazy too.
Yeah, I'm sure. And then they're going to bring in the real Smurfette to voice double for Britney Spears.
Yeah. Now. It's crazy, and I don't get it, and they would save a fortune because all of us voice actors do not require the same amounts of money like, Chris Rock saying that he does, I do a voiceover and I get paid $1 million, and it's like, okay, we don't get that. But, it is crazy, but that is the way it goes. Michael Bell, by the way, was also the voice of, do you remember the Parquet commercials? Butter.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Butter.
He was the little...
That was him.
That was him, and he did a voice in Star Wars: A New Hope, in the original Star Wars.
Yeah, yeah.
He actually did a voiceover in the Yavin base, and I believe when we had him on to talk to us years ago, he was asking us to reach out and get him some residuals, and.
That sounds like something Michael would.
Yeah.
He just wanted to know who we knew. I was like, well, we can definitely interview you. Well, I don't know about this. Those residuals.
Nobody got residuals on the original original Star Wars movies because
that's
were not
right.
union.
Yeah, and in some of them, there wasn't great record keeping. Some of them aren't even really on record.
Right. Did you know that the Clone Wars movie was the first one that was ever done under a SAG contract?
Wow.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Across all the prequels and everything.
We were the first to ever get residuals in Star Wars.
Wow.
So when you're talking any voiceover work on any Star Wars film prior, a lot of times that stuff kind of fell under the sound design umbrella. So Ben Burt would bring in a guy to speak Swahili and then say, hey, that's the voice of Nine Numb. And it wasn't looked at as a voice performance. It was looked at as sound design. Exactly. But that all has changed.
It has changed. Yeah. What's interesting? I was showing my daughter Phantom Menace, which she loved, by the way. And we're watching the credits, and at the end it says, James Taylor is credited in there for a voice. She's like, Daddy, I didn't know you did a voice. And I said, I didn't. It's not me. It's another James Taylor. But yeah, he was one of the voices. Him and Greg Proops, I believe, did the two-headed announcer.
When I've seen that credit, I thought that was you too.
No.
And I thought, sometimes actors will do that. They'll have a different name or they might change their name or, as a stage name later on. But I thought that was you.
No. I thought it was Sweet Baby James. I seen fire and I seen rain.
So what else you got going on, James? We know you've got Clone Wars. You are everywhere. I believe you're still doing the voiceovers on Fox, right? Still the voice
I just did some earlier today. Yeah.
For the Guardians. Domination and
Guardians of the Galaxy, sadly, has been canceled, but... finished or whatever you want to call it.
Gone.
About 2 weeks ago, I did my last voiceover session for the Guardians of the Galaxy TV show, which I thought was great. Yeah. And I believe it is actually one of the casualties of the new streaming service and all of that. So basically, they're kind of reconfiguring everything. So they're ending a lot of stuff, so then they can start a lot of things. But So it was unfortunate because it's actually a really fun show, and I play Yondu. Hey, boyo, the part Michael Rooker played in the movies.
Right, I love Michael Rooker. Yeah,
Cosmo, the telepathic Russian cosmonaut dog, which is just basically like Boris Netosh, moose and squirrel. Yes.
Michael Rooker is so great. I was doing a con, Salt Lake City Comic-Con a few years back, and he was a guest and I was a guest, and we're both in the same car together. And the driver is this huge Guardians fan, and she's got tattoos of Yondu on her arm and everything. And she goes,
"Oh my gosh!"
So James, did you tell Michael who you are? And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Who are you? Who are you? Why should I care?" And I go, "Well, I do Yondu in the cartoon." "Oh, really? Come on, let me hear it, man." And so I start doing Yondu. He goes, no, that's crap, man. That's not good. So he starts teaching me how to do Yondu. And it was fantastic. He was the sweetest guy in the world. He was so nice. He was so funny. And then we took a picture together, and he made me put on these sunglasses that were his wife's sunglasses. So we both have sunglasses on pointing at the camera. And what a nice man. And just, so genuine. So it was great. That is one of those things that's like you pinch me kind of moment there, having to just talk to him about the character. But and he did the whistling and everything too, and I did all my own whistling. We didn't require a whistling stunt person.
No whistling double for that.
Right.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, I am so excited about the Clone Wars returning, and I can't wait. I hope we have you back even before, but we definitely have to have you back when those episodes are available. What's really, I think, going to be fun is if it follows the model. Now, I don't know what the release schedule and model is going to be, but a lot of times with these series, when they put it up, whether it be Netflix or Amazon, they're all up at once. So talk about a binge fest. That's how season 6 of the Clone Wars was too.
Right.
It was so much fun.
That's a great point. I don't have any idea, but you would think that because they have plenty of time. This is coming out next year. So wouldn't that be wonderful? So you could just kind of get your fix. Now, let me ask you guys, though, what do you expect from this? What storylines are you hoping would be covered?
Well, I actually have a breakdown here from a listener who's this guy. He's pretty thorough, and he's been keeping notes at conventions and putting all the evidence together. So here's what we have.
Okay.
This is from listener Matt. Listener Matt, who says 4 episodes are definitely the Bad Batch arc, which was released as story reels and had the full voices already recorded. We know this because they were released online. Right. 4 episodes are the Crystal Crisis on Utapau arc, which was also released as story reels with full voices already recorded.
And it's fun to say Utapau, by the way.
Utapau. So that's 8 episodes right there. Holy smokes. So we have 4 more episodes, and this is what Matt says will be the Siege of Mandalore, which was, we saw a glimpse of it in the trailer for Clone Wars Saved. And it's an arc that was, according to Matt, always intended to be the final 4 episodes of what was suggested to be 8 seasons.
Yeah.
And then he breaks down everything he knows about the Clone Wars as far as what we're not seeing. He mentions an Ahsoka underworld arc, a Dark Disciple arc, which from what we understand, it was a script intended for one of the final 2 seasons of the Clone Wars, but was turned into a novel. He says partial voices recorded.
Yeah.
Right. He says there's a Yoda Wookiees Kashyyyk Bad Batch arc. Partial voices recorded and partial animatics completed.
Wow.
Son of Dathomir arc. But that was, I believe that was turned into a comic.
Yeah.
And that was said to be based on an unused script for Clone Wars.
Right.
Then there's something called Jedi Temple Ruins / Ahsoka arc. So that's what he says wraps up season 7. But Matt's not done keeping notes. He's got season 8 here.
Wow. Wouldn't it be weird if it was Matt Lanter?
He doesn't give a last name.
Well, we've already discussed that Matt doesn't remember anything. So
That's right.
Right. Yeah. Except for last weekend's. Yeah, he only remembers last weekend's college football scores. But here we go. Season 8, Dark Disciple, Arc 2. So there's that's a 2-arcer. There's a Rex/R2 Top Gun arc. There's a Yuzan Vong arc. Yuzan Vong, apparently. Amon Kala arc, which I think we already saw in season 4. Yes. And then Siege of Mandalore, which he said would wrap up the whole shebang. So there it is from Matt. He was keeping notes at conventions like Star Wars Celebration, and he's added up all of this evidence that he's collected.
Wow.
He says it would be approximately 50 episodes.
Wow. Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah. So, I mean, how do you feel? Obviously, I don't think anyone could confirm that there's any sort of idea that Clone Wars could continue beyond these 12 episodes. But do you think there's actually a heartbeat and maybe additional life can be squeezed out of this series? Or do you think it's going to be 12 and done?
I honestly don't know, and clearly I couldn't say if I did, but I could hope. I think it'd be wonderful. It's again interesting when I was listening to you guys talk about it in the last episode of just thinking how I think all of us, what happens is we all kind of then go, well, we know so much from this, and we know so much from Rebels, and we know so much from the new movies and stuff, but you know what? You can go back in time and live within that space and tell new stories forever if you want to, And
yeah, for sure.
We forget that kind of in this very sophisticated way of storytelling nowadays where we feel like you can't do that. But I think that people that love Clone Wars go, no, I would very gladly sit and watch stories that just stay within that world, even though we know what happened afterwards. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Because we knew what happened afterwards anyways because Revenge of the Sith came out. So
of course, if for Star Wars fans to get bent out of shape of that, I mean, that's been the way the stories were told from the very beginning.
Right.
You sort of started with the middle and worked your way forward and worked your way back, and but I like to think that there's definitely a possibility. I mean, you look at revivals like the X-Files, Will and Grace. Murphy Brown is coming back.
Is it really?
Yeah, Murphy. Can you believe that? Murphy Brown is coming back.
Wow.
And so
come on.
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I'll talk about being able to write your own check. I mean,
yeah.
I think with them, it's a matter of, and I guess this could get in anyone's head, but it's like, how do you do it? And then I also think that they did it with Curb Your Enthusiasm to a degree.
Yeah, they did, which was great. And that was a nice little nod to all of us that love it so much. But yeah, it's
for sure.
But yeah, with Clone Wars too, I mean, it is. It's, the greatest thing is again, you have Dave Filoni at the helm, who spent, as you guys have said many times before, hours upon hours, countless hours with George Lucas. He's the last remnant of knowledge of how George would do things and how he would tell a story, but he's also such an aficionado and knows and is so passionate about all of it. So, we're in good hands no matter what these 12 episodes bring, but wouldn't it be lovely if there was more to come after that as well? And that is dependent upon everybody buying that streaming service and watching it and showing them that it means something to them, not just trying to hack it somewhere online and,
That's right.
Put it on YouTube, So
right. Wow. Well, James, it's been so much fun to catch up with you, and you've been so generous with your time.
Oh, thank you.
And it's a treat. This is nostalgia. Isn't it crazy just to think that Clone Wars is now officially nostalgic for people? I mean, it doesn't take long. But kids are, parents are watching it with their kids now,
Yeah, and when we would do the Christmas episodes with you guys, and I remember you guys saying I'm like the Sinatra. I bring my friends,
Oh yeah.
Those times were just lovely and wonderful, and it was that thing. And so it's kind of fun to think that it's all coming back in some way again, where we're all able to kind of sit back and talk. And so you guys bring me on anytime. I love you guys. I love the show. I love what you do for the community of Star Wars, and I think it's important stuff. And I really hope everybody also joins Patreon and subscribes to that for you guys too, and supports the show. And you didn't ask me to do that. I'm doing that on my own because I know how important it is.
Thank you so much. I do. Before we let you go, I know that you've got a new project coming up. you are getting into the world of podcasting. Finally, we convinced him after 10 years. So what can you tell us about the podcast? Because we know you're active on YouTube and other things, but...
Yeah, YouTube I did as this experiment for these last couple of years because I was fascinated by all of it and I wanted to put out content. And I would put out these shows like Clone Wars Conversations, which I did a full season of and I interviewed all of them. That show's not necessarily on hold, but I am kind of waiting because I don't feel like I can actually put episodes out right now with this new Clone Wars news because it's, I don't want to get in the way of anything they're doing. But so I did all of that and I loved it all, but it's not my roots. My roots are radio. It's like we're radio cats and kids here, man. This is what we do.
Yes.
And audio and the theater of the mind. So I was like, why am I not podcasting? And Jimmy and I had talked about this years ago. And then I went and got into doing all the YouTube stuff. And you guys just, have just blown the roof off of all of it. And I'm just like, this is so cool. I love this. And here's what I would do. I would put videos out on YouTube and people would go, when are you going to release the podcast version so I can listen in the car? And I'd be like, oh. I'm so glad I spent thousands of dollars producing video. And so I started just doing kind of mess around ones here of like, would they be? And then I realized, whether you guys are here or not, I'd be in this room talking on this microphone, talking to myself, doing voices and stuff. So that's what the show's going to be called, Talking to Myself. It's an extension of my stage show in that regard. And all the characters on the show will be me talking to me. And then I will interview people. I will give it away here. This is an exclusive. I've not released this anywhere else. When the podcast comes out, the very first episode, my very special guest, the first guest, is none other than General Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh, wow. Well, you must know a lot of people to be able to book a guest of that caliber. We've been trying to reach out to the general for a number of years.
And all you get is me.
Well, so this is great news. So do we have a target date for the release of the first episode?
Well, I am guessing within the month. Here, because there's a few things you got to kind of do, like to get it on iTunes. Our buddy Rob over at Libsyn was telling me, it's like, you got to kind of prep that, and it takes a couple weeks to get all that set. So the first episode, I'm putting the final touches on here. I've been doing that today, and then I'm making another couple of 3 or 4 that I recorded. I'm going to go back and revisit and put some, spit polish on those. And then we'll get it out there. And it'll be at least a weekly thing, I'm hoping. And I hope people will subscribe and check it out.
Well, cannot wait. And we'll get the word out. We'll get the word out on the show. We'll put it up on our Facebook page, our website. We'll let everyone listening to the show know when it's happening.
Great.
So we'll all be ready. We'll be braced. We'll be cocked, locked, and ready to rock.
That's
waiting for
well, thank you. And then the
Chad show.
The last thing I will plug is that Catherine Tabor and I wrote a movie earlier this year, and her and I are going to start production on that hopefully before the end of the year. And
wow.
it will star the lovely Catherine Tabor, Padme Amidala, and myself.
By the way, I hear Catherine Tabor's voice every night as my kids, before they go to bed, they watch an episode of Loud House.
Oh.
and Catherine Tabor is, I think, a couple of the sisters, I believe, on Loud House. Certainly one. Lori, I believe.
Lori Loud, yeah.
Yeah. And my daughter just thinks it's the coolest thing that she's also Padme.
Oh, yeah. So, I'm on that show every once in a while as
I have heard you. Yes. Yeah.
And then a bunch of kids. You'll hear me doing a little kid, and then the teacher is like this guy kind of thing. I don't know, but
it's such a great show. It's such a great show for families to watch together. It really is. It's funny for the grown-ups. The kids love it. It's just, it's fabulous.
Oh, and if you could be a fly on the wall, hearing the conversations that go on when the mic is not on,
I can only imagine.
Sweet little kids with their sweet little kid voices, speaking like sailors.
I'll bet.
Yeah. It's like those great Thundercats outtakes that you could find.
Yes.
Oh man,
well,
you guys have too much fun. Yes.
Thank you so much for letting me be on. I've probably talked way too long for you guys here.
Not at all.
Oh, that's why you're here, my friend.
Okay, good.
So best of luck with the new podcast.
Yeah,
cannot wait for the return of Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about once those episodes are launched.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, just thinking to the near future that podcast, talking to myself, that's going to be fantastic.
Well, and thanks to you, Jimmy Mack, because honestly, I probably would have sat around talking about it for another year had I not talked to you. So thank you.
Oh, good. I mean, whatever I could do to point you in the right direction, I know it's going to pay off big time. So really looking forward to it. So thanks again, James.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Take care, man.